Hello, welcome to White Threads FlossTube number 17. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do. I'd love it if you followed my videos. Today, I think I'm actually going to be a little bit controversial. I'm going to talk about teaching embroidery to left-handers. You probably realise by now that I am left-handed. Many years ago I wrote a book called The Left-Handed Embroiderer's Companion because I realised that left-handed students loved having a left-handed teacher. So I wrapped myself up into a book so that they could take me anywhere with them. I then had right-handers saying to me, "Where's our copy? Where's the right-handed version?" And I said, "Well, you don't need one. All Stitch dictionaries are right-handed." They said, "Yes, but we want yours." So I did the right-handed one for them. But this all came about because I am a left-hander. I teach left-handers left-handed and I teach right-handers right-handed. I have had to get used to stitching right-handed because if I turned up in a class and said to the right-handed students, "I'm sorry, I can't teach you, you'll just have to figure it out," I wouldn't get invited back. Yet from so many left-handers I have heard that that's how they are treated by some right-handed teachers. Now, I'm not saying everyone does that. I know that there are many fantastic right-handed teachers who make every effort to teach their left-handers in a way that the left-handers can understand. There is a very common way of instructing left-handers, and that is for the right-handed teachers to say to them, "Sit opposite me and mirror what I am doing." I would like to say to those teachers, stop doing that. Now, the reason why I say that is to do with thread twist. You probably know that threads either twist with an S twist or a Z twist. Now I'll explain what that means. S twist threads look a bit like an S. So if we draw an S, you can see that the main part of the S stripes that way. The main part of the S goes in that direction, which is the same stripe that you will see on an S twist thread. For a Z twist, you will see a Z shape. And the main stripe on the thread, like the Z, goes that way. So threads are either Z twist or S twist. Now, a lot of people think that if you turn the thread around, you can change it from being an S twist to a Z twist. Well, no, if you turn the thread around, it will still be an S twist or a Z twist. You don't automatically and miraculously change the twist of the thread. It remains the same. You've just turned the thread around. So I have a piece of thread here. This is a pearl cotton 3. I wanted to find something that was very, very chunky. If you look at that, you can see that that is an S twist thread. The thread has the stripe in the same way that an S does. That is an S twist thread. If I turn that around, it's still an S twist thread. I've done nothing to it except turn it around. So what difference does that make to a left-hander learning from a right-hander? Well, it means that if they're mirroring the stitch method, the thread twist will interact with that method differently than it will for a right-hander. Now, the best way I can show that to you is with stem stitch and Bullion stitch. So I've done a couple of samples and I'm going to show them to you and explain the difference with what it means for changing the direction of your stitching, so mirroring it, and how that interacts with the thread twist. So here we have two samples of stitching. On the left hand side here we have some stem stitch and actually we have outline stitch as well. Here on the right we have two bullions. Okay, so this one here is stem stitch. And you can see how you get very distinct stitches forming as you work that. Now, if you change the method, so for this stitch I started here and each time I brought my thread out on that side, and that's what causes the stripe of the stitch to go that way. Now if I used a mirror image of that process, I would come out, if I start here, I would come out on this side each time. And you can see that by doing that, the stitch looks totally and utterly different. Each of the stitches melds into the previous one because of thread twist. Now this is actually outline stitch. This is stem stitch, this is outline stitch. And if a right-hander is showing a left-hander how to stitch by saying, mirror what I am doing, this is what a left-hander will get. They will get outline stitch, they won't get stem stitch, and they look completely different. So how does a right-hander teach a left-hander how to do stem stitch? Well, rather than saying mirror me, what they need to do is either turn it 90 degrees or 180 degrees. You cannot get the same effect by mirroring. And so a right-handed teacher should not tell a left-hander to mirror it. Over here we have bullion stitch. Now typically when you're doing a bullion stitch, you will wrap the needle in a clockwise direction, and when you do that, you will get that effect there. You will get the many plies of the thread. Remember, I used a very thick chunky thread, which is this one here, a pearl 3, so that you could see easily what was happening. If a right-hander is teaching a left-hander how to do bullion stitch and they're saying mirror what I'm doing, it means that the left-hander will no longer be wrapping their needle in a clockwise direction. They will be wrapping it in an anti or counterclockwise direction, and they will get that result there, which means that each of the stitches sit very separately and you get a very, very different look. A right-handed teacher cannot teach bullion stitch to a left-handed stitcher and say mirror what I am doing, because they will not get the same result. Now if I sound like I'm talking about this subject with great passion, it's because I am. It frustrates me greatly that so many people think it's okay to reduce the idea of teaching to left-handers to the simple formula of just flip it over, just work it in mirror image. For so many stitches, this will not produce the same result for left-handers as for right-handers, and that's putting left-handers at a distinct disadvantage. So therefore, how can right-handers teach left-handers in a way that works for left-handers? Now you may be thinking, I never teach, but just think, if you're at your stitching group and a left-hander comes over to you and looks at what you're doing and says, can you show me how to do that? You will show them how to do it, most likely. Or maybe you have a daughter or a granddaughter or a niece or a nephew or a son or a grandson, and you'd like to show them how to do embroidery, but they're left-handed. So you may not be a formal embroidery teacher, but you probably may have some situations where you teach informally. So how can right-handers teach left-handers? Well, if you have a copy of my right-handed stitch dictionary, which I hope you do, because it's a great book, in that book you will note that for each stitch there's a little diagram saying left-handed, and that shows you the difference of what a right-hander does compared to a left-hander does. Now in this situation it works to flip it, and this diagram will show you the difference, and it tells you the difference down the bottom here too. And that will give you a clue as to how you need to change your method for your your left-handed friend. If you are a right-handed teacher of any sort, then please may I recommend that you get yourself a copy of the Left-Handed Embroiderer's Companion. I know many right-handed teachers who have a copy of this book precisely for teaching the left-handers in their class. It means that the left-handers can have just as fantastic instruction as the right-handers can. And it means that a right-handed teacher can follow the instructions in this book to demonstrate to their left-handed student how to do the stitch. Please don't sell your left-handed friends and students short. Please teach them in a way that they can understand, that makes sense to them, and that will give them just as good a result as you get in your embroidery. I hope I haven't been too over the top for you. It's just something I feel really strongly about, and it's something that right-handers can do something about. So I hope you come back to me after this and you don't think, oh, she's just an opinionated so-and-so. I'm not. Well, I am, maybe. I just have really strong feelings about this. Thank you for joining me again today, and I look forward to seeing you again next time.